Hi friends, welcome to Non-Functional Club. In this session, we are going to talk about CIA Triad. This is a very important information security component, and we are going to look into details on the same. So let's begin. CIA stands for Confidentiality, Integrity, and Availability. We will look into each of this component in detail. Before that, this is part of information security, and serious consequences can result if even one of these elements are breached. So CI Triad was created to provide a baseline standard for evaluating and implementing security regardless of underlying system or organization. So you have to follow certain rules and principles for CI Triad to be implemented, and if those are implemented properly, the security for information will be properly in place. So let's look into confidentiality first. This basically has to do with keeping organizations data private, and this often means that only authorized users and processes should be able to access or modify the data within system. So usually there are various components which are involved as a part of particular project architecture, or in the company different servers are placed in different environments. So all this particular data should be intact and should be kept private from other intruders. That is what confidentiality stands for. We will look into few examples. So how this can be breached, how confidentiality can be breached. For that, if hacker gets access to the password of maybe database of your company, so in that case, if the password is present with him, so obviously he is an authorized user for the database and he can breach into the system and do some attacks on it. Next is if some sensitive email is sent to incorrect individual. So by mistake, it is being sent to certain individual who is third party, and then as it contains sensitive information, so the private data of the organization is leaked here. Next is if hacker reads sensitive information by intercepting or eavesdropping on an information transfer. So if there is some mail sent and there is man in the middle attack, and in this way intruder is able to fetch a private information, then definitely that is harmful for the organization. So these are examples. Let's see how we can avoid these situations. So first and foremost, we should always provide strong data encryption for all the data which is being received and sent. Next is we have to implement authentication and access controls. So in this case, definitely there are various levels in the organization who have access to different data. In that case, we have to always store our password securely. We should have multi-factor authentication in place, and we can even implement biometric verification so that data won't be breached. Next is we can minimize the number of places or times the information appears. Information should not be appeared in all the instances, and we should only display it wherever required. And then as said, from biometric perspective, we can even implement physical security controls so that data is never handed over to any intruder in place. Let's look into second part, that is integrity. So again, this is property of accuracy and completeness. It means maintaining the consistency, accuracy, and trustworthiness of the data over its entire life cycle. Also, unauthorized entities should not be able to alter the data. So it clearly means that in terms of integrity, it says whenever my data is being transferred, it is transferred in a way that it is handed over with a secured way, and it is never breaking the trust between two entities. Also, throughout the complete life cycle of the data, this particular integrity should be maintained, and we should not allow any unauthorized entities by any means to be able to perform any CRUD operations or alter the data for that say. So in case of integrity, what all examples we have which can happen. So here if you see, first example is there might be some human error while entering the data, because of which the integrity can be breached. Then there is some error during data transmission. So one of the system is down, or network glitch, anything happens. So the error during transmission, or you may have some software bugs or hardware failure due to which integrity issue can occur, or by chance the hacker gets access to the system and he has changed the information, and he should not have the access to that particular information. So again he can definitely use that information for incorrect purposes. Let's look into how we can avoid this integrity. So we have to place well functioning authentication mechanism and access controls for each and every individual who is able to access the data, and we should always check this integrity with hash functions. We should always have data backups and redundancy, and always we should audit and log the information of how many people have accessed the data and how many people have made changes to that particular data, so that even if there is some breach occurred, we'll be able to identify at which stage this particular breach was occurred. Let's look into the next part, that is availability. So availability is the property of being accessible and usable on demand by an authorized entity. In this case, only authorized person should have access to permitted resources, and it should be present all the time. Like those particular access should be present all the time. Availability itself says that the data should be available all the time. So how can, there are like, let's see into examples how the attack on availability will take place. Like suppose there is some website which you want to access and you're not able to access it. So how can, or how a person can attack on that system? So first and major attack which is commonly known, that is DOS attack, denial of service. Next is if there is some hardware failure which has occurred, because of which the system is down and now we are not able to access the particular data or particular system. Then there are some natural disasters like earthquake, fire and all, or there is some software or network configuration mismatch which has happened with the latest update or latest networking configurations. So how to avoid the availability issue from occurring? We should always place IDS, that is intrusion detection system, in place. We have various tools to actually place this system. We should always have a network traffic control, so that if the servers are that important, proper network traffic control mechanism should be in place. Network should not go off for that particular system. We should have strong firewalls in place so that no one is able to do certain DOS attacks on the system. Then we should have physical security of the hardware and infrastructure so that it is always protected against fire, water, and other elements which can cause harm to the system. Hardware maintenance activity should be carried out in process always, so that this particular infrastructure is never affected, and the redundancy should be taken care of. So that was all about CIA Triad in details. Hope the session was useful. Stay tuned for more topics related to OWASP Top 10. Do subscribe Non-Functional Club channel. Do like and share if the information was useful. Thank you.